tonight by just relating a quick story, since this is a night of we survivors giving what we have experienced and passing it along to the rest, in hopes that there just might be something that is helpful to our fellows. When I got diagnosed in 2003, at the age of 53, I went through what all of us go through in the diagnosis stage of, hearing the C word and all of that, and I went into a mild state of panic, needless to say, as we all probably did. A friend of a friend referred me to a pastor in Irvine, who I knew, and actually who had married me, but Pastor Fred had suggested that I come to this group, and which I did, and at the same time I counseled with him a number of times, and he basically held my hand. And as Dr. Schultz says, talked me down from the tree, and I came down, and it was safe, and I went forward with my treatment plan. And I was very thankful for Pastor Fred, not just that he took the time personally to counsel me and my fears and all the other things we go through, but it's just reassuring having a good friend at my side. And then, of course, I'm eternally thankful for him introducing me to this group, which has just been invaluable. And it's been a 5-year process now, and as a board member and somebody that works with my colleagues in this group, it's very gratifying to have a lemon and turn it into lemonade through this kind of involvement. I want to take a brief moment to acknowledge the other guys that work, and volunteers, gals that work, wives. Can everybody, a volunteer and a board member, stand up and acknowledge, please, that the hard work that you all do? I know Ron. Stand up, Ron. Walt has been with us a long time. Any other board members here? Lou, Webb over here, Harry. Let's give them all a round of applause. So, one of the main things, as you all know, that we do at the Florida Prostate Forum is we present who we consider world's experts in terms of the best of the treating physicians and researchers, so that we can all stay abreast of the changing world of prostate cancer treatment. And then from time to time, I remember several years ago, we had a similar program like this, and I personally learned a heck of a lot about prostate cancer through the experiences of people that I listened to on this stage just like this. Oh, before I forget, the Pastor Fred story. I forgot the punchline, which is really important. He, about 3 years ago, gives me a call. And guess what? He had just gotten diagnosed with prostate cancer and was freaking out. So I got a chance for some payback, and I spent a lot of time counseling Pastor Fred. Got him with one of the experts. He's being treated now, and he's a happy camper. And so that's kind of how this process works. Some people reach out to help us, and then from out of nowhere, we get a chance to help somebody else out. And if there's time at the end of this, there's another story I want to tell you, but I want to make sure we get ample time for all these gentlemen on the stage tonight who have volunteered their time to pass along their personal experiences. But there's another little story I'd like to impart later. So we learn as much, we think, from talking with one another and sharing information as we do from listening to the authorities, because there's nothing that's better than to internalize somebody else's struggles and to listen and learn through our fellows. So tonight it's our privilege to hear stories of these gentlemen that are up here with me on this dais, and fellow prostate cancer survivors. And each will have their own particular story, their own particular point of view, their own particular trials and tribulations that they've gone through. And in the process of being diagnosed and then the process of educating oneself, it's formidable. You're educating yourself, you're educating your family, and most importantly, sometimes you're educating your treating physician. And we're all going to have a little bit different stories. Tonight I invited a few fellows up here who may not have had picture-perfect results, who've had maybe some side effects that aren't too pleasant. And that's the heck of it is with this disease is there's not a one cure fits all, as we all know, and there's no treatment option that is without its underlying possible side effects. There's some up here that have sailed through on all counts. They've eradicated or managed their cancer, and at the same time their side effects are minimal. At the same time, there's a couple speakers who may have a differing point of view, so I think it's instructive that we all listen to the different kinds of things that have happened to the survivors. And that's because, as we know, this disease is unique and different according to each person's particular case. No two men will have the same cancer, the same tumor, the same numbers, the same staging, which we all know as students of this disease. It is a process, and one of the things that we don't give advice, as you can see, and if you forget that, you can just look here. We wanted to make sure you all knew. And I think that's a good thing, because we don't give advice. We're not doctors, but we have our experiences to share only. But as I mentioned, each man's disease is different, and it requires each person attacking it in the way that's comfortable, the way that will give them the best chance at a cure with the minimal side effects, because let's face it, quality of life issues are really important. We all hope to live a good long time, and with a quality of life that we can embrace and feel really good about. So, without further talking on my part, let me start the evening with our speakers. We're going to really cover most of the available modalities of treatment or observation, which include active surveillance. It used to be called watchful waiting. We all kind of like to move away from that now because we think active objective surveillance is a far better term. And then, of course, the radiation options with seeds and external, and we're going to cover with a couple of speakers, 3 speakers. We're going to look a little bit at a couple of fellows that have had surgery. I wanted to get a cryo person up here tonight, but we had somebody that canceled at the last minute. So if anybody's had successful cryo surgery and want to come up and join our panel, come on up, don't be shy. Jordan is going to speak about his experiences with high-intensity focused ultrasound. And then Ron and I will briefly discuss our results with hormonal blockade for early stage, intermediate grade prostate cancer. So let's start off hearing from Carlos, who came to our group about 3 years ago, I think. He'll tell you for sure. And he undertook an active surveillance, a very active surveillance approach. And let's hear from Carlos. Carlos, would you mind starting?
Right. Good evening, everybody. Perhaps some of the newest survival here. I know there are people that have been with this cancer for over 20 years, like in the audience is Dr. Brigham over there, who's been over 20 years. The cancer is not here, but I'll tell you a little bit about my situation. 4 years ago, to be more precise, in April, just a few days after my birthday, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And I couldn't believe it because I felt relatively strong and in good health. So I panicked. And for about a week I didn't know what to do. But time passed, and then I gained a little more I talked to Tom, I talked to a lot of people. And one day I was at the library, at the Orange Public Library. I was looking for books, trying to inform myself more about this. And I was reading a book, and right at the last page, there was an address and a name of the Prostate Forum here. So what I did, I just got a piece of paper, I copied it, put it on my packet, and as soon as I got home, I dialed the number. And Marty, who I don't see him here, but he answered the phone. And I was practically crying because I was trembling, I was really scared. And he asked me to calm down, and he said, well, that's not, his words were exactly, cancer, prostate cancer is not a death sentence anymore. So just calm down and tell me about it. And then he went ahead and explained the rest to me. And I ended up with this group, and I'm very grateful that I came here because I have gained a lot of, I gathered a lot of information from these guys here. But I tell you, when I first got the cancer, as I said already, I thought it wasn't the end of the world for me. And now, looking back, it's been 4 years, when at the moment, I thought it was just a few more months and I was going to die. And perhaps some of you have felt that way. But now I can tell you that it's 4 years more than I am expected to live. And so, to make a long story short, I went ahead and got information about all the treatments, the pros and cons of all the treatments. And the first one that I got was surgery, because that's what my urologist recommended. He said, you look good, in good health, you're still young, go ahead and let's have surgery. Let's schedule surgery. And I said, no, not that fast. Let me see. Let me go find out more about it. But he wanted to get the knife and get it out of there. And then I went to see my oncologist. And he said, well, let's do X-ray. So then I realized that each doctor recommends whatever he thinks is the best, because that's what they do.
Carlos, you mean radiation?
Oh, radiation, I'm sorry. That's it, yeah. So I decided to go ahead, investigate about many others, even the one that is now legal here, which is the HIFU. Have you heard about it? It's in Canada and in Mexico too. And finally, I decided just to stay like that. I changed my diet totally. I became a vegetarian overnight. I started a walking program every day. And as Lou says a few minutes ago, I felt better than I felt when I feel better than I felt when I was diagnosed with cancer. I used to have little problems with headaches, stomach problems that disappear now. Since I left meat, I don't eat meat anymore. And so I'm feeling better. So, but for 3 years, my PSA had been, or was, approximately between 3.1 and 3.3. And about January of this year, I noticed that it went up to 3.9, and then it went to 4.3. So I decided to go see Dr. Ban. And Dr. Ban says that maybe, he says he doesn't see anything bad, but maybe it's time for me to do another biopsy. Or wait for a little more. So that's my stage right now. So I guess if you ask me what made a difference, I think of the information I got from different sources and the fact that I changed my diet overnight and started a program of exercises. I think that's what makes a difference. And I don't know, I'm here to see what's coming up later. Again, I think I'm looking at possible hormone treatment. That's what I'm more favored to. We'll see what happens. But that's my situation at the present time.
Very good, Carlos. So here's a man who got active surveillance combined with dietary change, lifestyle change, and he held his disease at bay for 4 years. And now it's time to treat, and we've talked about it. So, I know his case a little bit, and he's ready to make an intelligent decision, but he's had plenty of time. He didn't get rushed into an initial treatment that may or may not have been beneficial for him. And while I'm thinking of it, we're going to take questions and answers at the end of the session, and then after that, if anybody has further questions, we're going to ask our speakers to reassemble in the foyer, because Lou needs the space to start cleaning up his camera equipment. But our speakers will be available in the foyer if anybody wants to cut on a shirt sleeve and ask anything that they may have not been able to ask during our normal Q&A, or if we don't have a lot of time for Q&A.
Yes, it would be helpful if the person finished his talk where his PSA level is today.
Okay, gentlemen, if you, most of them have been asked to do that. I think they will. And Carlos already said that his is up in the, 4.2 range now?
Yeah, it was 3.9 the first out and 4.3 the second one. In less than a year, that's about 1. So that's what I'm a little concerned about.
But he's being observed by Dr. Bond.
Yeah, Dr. Bond told me about a couple of months ago. I've been with him, seeing him every year since I was first time.
Who does the color Doppler ultrasound, if people don't know, and he also treats with cryosurgery.
Yeah.
He's a radiologist by trade, but he's become a prostate cancer expert throughout the years, and one of the people that we think very highly of here at the forum. Is Mark Forster here? Let's see, Mark. Okay, Mr. Liu, can you come up? And Liu also chose initially active surveillance, at that time watchful waiting. He also did some dietary changes, which he'll tell you about. He got a good long time. He got 9 years without selecting a treatment, and then he has since gone on to treat. And I'll have Lou Pfeffer, one of our founders, one of our pillars in our organization, come up and tell you his story. Lou, by the way, was one of the guys who took me under his wings when I got diagnosed, and he really was very helpful. To those that don't know Lou, he's a gem of a gentleman and somebody that a wealth of information, and one of our highly respected directors.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Larry, and thank you for Pancho in this program tonight for us. I want to tell you my story. In September of '94, I was really unhealthy. I was working in a stressful occupation, living on fast food and washing it down with beer, and not exercising at all.
Hey Lou, hops have just been known, that just came out, hops are anti-prostate cancer.
Oh.
So now the latest that I can tell you right from the last night's news is to drink lots of beer.
Well, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it'll come out. Yeah.
And at that time I weighed 250 pounds. My cholesterol was way over 200. And I went for an annual physical exam. My PSA was just a little high at 4.5. But I was directed to see a urologist, and he biopsied me. And the results showed that I had prostate cancer. And I was devastated and very dumb. I didn't even know I had a prostate. And now I find out I have prostate cancer. My Gleason score was initially read as 3+2 or 5. And they gave me a bone scan, which I later learned was absolutely useless at that PSA level. But I assumed I had the worst possible case of cancer, and I was probably going to die very soon. And since I didn't know anything, I let the urologist convince me the best thing for me to do was have surgery. He said, just remove it and everything will be okay. Fortunately for me, the urologist was so inept that he needed me to save 3 pints of blood for a transfusion during the surgery. And during the 3 weeks it took me to bank 3 pints of blood, my son-in-law alerted me to an article in the September '93 issue of Atlantic Monthly magazine that discussed the very probable serious side effects of prostatectomies. Then 2 good things happened. I was advised to call Bill Dane, co-founder of our Prostate Forum, and I was introduced to the macrobiotic diet and lifestyle. I started coming to the Prostate Forum meetings and I began to learn more about the problem, and I started to see Dr. Mark Schultz. I also decided to do active surveillance, which wasn't very common at this time. And I have to say that in '94, we were kind of in the dark ages on prostate cancer. There was very little information available, very few support groups, no books, no newsletters. And so I found that the Prostate Forum was a very valuable source of information. I did make a major lifestyle change. In about 6 months, I lost 60 pounds. My PSA remained fairly stable. I was getting it measured every 60 days. And I continued doing this for over 9 years. And my PSA only rose slightly. In 1995, I became one of the directors of the Prostate Forum. At about 9.5 years after diagnosis, I experienced 4 consecutive increases in my PSA. Then I went and had a color Doppler ultrasound by Dr. Bond in Ventura, and he found that I had some prostate cancer in one of my seminal vesicles. So I realized that I had to be more active, and I started triple hormone blockade. I was using a Lupron shot every 28 days, along with 1 Casodex tablet and 1 Proscar tablet a day. And my PSA dropped rapidly, and it nadir'd at 0.003. I was on this treatment for 15 months. Then I went on Proscar maintenance, using only 1 5-milligram Proscar pill a day. And I was getting a color Doppler ultrasound by Dr. Bond every year for follow-up. At one of these ultrasounds, Dr. Bond saw activity in one of my seminal vesicles, although my PSA had only gone back to 1.0. So I began another round of triple hormone blockade, which lasted for 15 months. And again, my PSA dropped rapidly and nadir'd at 0.003. I had minimal side effects from both the hormonal treatments. Of course, I was impotent during the treatment, but I only had a small amount of hot flushes or breast tenderness. I did gain some weight during the first treatment, and now I've been on Proscar maintenance since September of 2006. I take 1 Proscar in the morning and 1 in the evening, which is more than most people on Proscar maintenance. They usually take 1 a day. Lately, my PSA has been rising, and the last one I got was 3.6. So I'm probably going to have some more treatment soon. I believe I'm healthier today at 80 years old than I was when I was diagnosed at 65. Today I weigh 174 pounds. My cholesterol is 176. My blood pressure is typically 118/68. I'm taking no prescription drugs except the Proscar. My take-home message is prostate cancer is not a death sentence. It is treatable at any stage. Your options are often limited by the insurance coverage you have. And most of the men who are diagnosed with prostate cancer today should not rush into treatment, but should study all of the possible options carefully. This takes some time, but remember, most treatments are not reversible. You should be very comfortable with your decision for treatment before taking a step. For many men, their prostate cancer is the very least of their health problems. In closing, I encourage each of you to make a lifestyle change. Eat very little red meat and dairy products. Eat fish regularly that contain omega-3 fatty acids like wild salmon or canned sardines. Eat lots of vegetables. Cut down on your fast food, your sugar, your salt, and soft drinks. Limit your alcohol intake. Certainly don't smoke. And exercise at least 30 minutes a day, 3 times a week. This includes walking fast and lifting some weights. Take a good multiple vitamin daily that does not contain iron. And take 200 milligrams of selenium daily. Dr. Schultz, who's my doctor now, just wrote an article which says that men who have high cholesterol, like over 217, have a risk of relapse 2.5 times that of men with a cholesterol of less than 167. And this is something you can correct. So, thank you very much.
Will, I have one question for you. If you had it to do over again, would you have stayed on active surveillance for the length of time? I believe it was 9 years.
Probably not, because for one thing, I would have seen Dr. Bond earlier than I did, and I have a lot of confidence in his color Doppler. I believe it's the best diagnostic tool we have to see where your cancer is and how much there is. So, but I didn't know about Dr. Bond till I saw him do this procedure on 3 men on stage at a conference, and then the Monday morning at 10 minutes to 8, I called his office and scheduled going up there. And I go up there once a year for follow-up.
Very good. Thank you, Lou. Let's, if you could, hold the questions till the end so we can keep this flowing. Write it out. We'll be happy to answer questions at the end. Thank you. One of the heroes I have in the prostate cancer world is Stephen Strom. Most of you know who he is. His current thinking, and I read it through Physician to Patient, which is a great web resource. And he basically is saying that it's status that begets treatment, and to find the proper status, there are a number of tools that all of us can avail ourselves of that give us the most accurate picture that medical science can give us to determine the size, location, severity of a particular prostate cancer tumor. And I just wanted to pass that along, that those of you that don't know Stephen Strom's work, tug on my shirt sleeve after. I'll be happy to point you out where you can learn that. But there are maybe 5 or 6 major things besides color Doppler ultrasound and spectrometry with interrectal MRI at UC San Francisco, with different biomarkers that can be attained through original tissue samples or blood work. There's just now at least 5, 7, 8 different things that we can look at, your physician can look at with you and to help you decide if you're newly diagnosed and you're looking for a treatment option. Strom maintains, and most of us on the board agree, that the prudent approach is to look at all the information carefully before you make a treatment decision. So let's move on to some of the fellows that have had treatment. And one of my speakers, one of our board members who did seeds, is not with us. Probably something came up at the last minute. If anybody out there has done successful seeds, or even, if you've done seeds and you're not happy and you want to come up and join us, please do. Don't even ask, just come on up here. But we have somebody now who has done external, and we'll start with Charles, who did external and is, I think, very pleased. And let's listen to see what Charles has to say.
Good evening. As background, I don't know what this is on. Is that on?
Yes.
As background, when I was 60 years old, I was in great shape. I ran 20 miles a week, had a good business going, and life was good. I decided, because I was 60, to have my first physical exam ever. So I went to the doctor, and he said all my numbers were really good, except for my PSA, which was 11.1. Now, I couldn't even spell PSA. I didn't know what it meant. I had no idea. So anyway, he shipped me off to a urologist to do further testing. And during the time between the testing and when I got back to the urologist who gave me the bad news, yes,
Switch your mic on.
How's that? Anyway, between the time that the urologist did the testing and gave me the results, I did some reading on surgery and conventional radiation. And my conclusion at that point was that I didn't want either one, also hormone therapy. I decided I didn't want any of those three primarily because of the side effects, not because they couldn't cure you. So when I went to see the urologist, he suggested I have a 11.1 PSA at that time, Gleason score of 6, and my prostate size was 105 to 110 cc's, which is large compared to average of 25 to 33. At any rate, he suggested that I immediately go see him for surgery, and he was available next Tuesday. So I was kind of one up on him at that point, and he went through his whole spiel, and I turned him down. So then he switched me over to conventional radiation, and went through the whole thing on that. I could have had it done locally and this and that for 2 months. I had already read up on the side effects of that, and I turned that down. I also turned down the hormone therapy. Seeds were not a possibility because my prostate was too large, and at that time they couldn't put enough seeds in to make the whole thing work. So I said to him, basically, if that's all you've got, I'm going to do nothing, because I'm having a good life, and life doesn't go on forever, so I might as well enjoy what I've got. And I was very serious about that. So I said, do you have anything else? He said, well, there's something else that they claim they have great results, but I don't believe it. I said, well, what's that? He said, well, proton beam therapy. And then he quickly explained in about a minute the whole concept of how it works. And luckily, in undergraduate school, I had a bachelor's in physics, so I could follow what he was saying, and the whole thing made sense. And essentially what it is, and I think that most people that are even in this field don't really understand the difference between proton therapy and standard conventional radiation, or IMRT, or any of the other types of radiation like that. All of the others use X-rays, and the protons are basically 1,800 times heavier than the X-rays. So what this allows the treatment to do is to basically blow through all the parts until you get to the prostate, and then you can control the velocity, and by this thing called the Bragg peak effect, stop the protons right in the prostate. So in other words, instead of getting 35% of the radiation absorbed by all the other parts of your body between where it goes in and goes out, and then the 65% going to the prostate, you get 97% delivered to the prostate. And that's the whole thing. You're trying to minimize the side effects. So to me, the whole thing made sense. And again, the main thing to me was I did not want to do something that was going to give me permanent side effects, particularly sexual dysfunction. That to me was just too important. Now, you know, everybody's different, but that's just the way I was.
Charles, let me ask you, did you mention your Gleason score?
My Gleason score was 6. Okay, 3 plus 3.
Did you have any imaging to see?
They used a ultrasound when he did that, so he could kind of see where it was going, but that was it. This is back at that time when they didn't have the technology that they have now. So that's all I knew was those 3 numbers: PSA 11.1, Gleason score 6, and the prostate size of 105, 110 cc's.
And what year was this again?
That was 8 years ago.
8 years.
8 years ago. Okay. So anyway, the main thing to me was that I just would not do anything that would cause me permanent damage to my body and particularly sexual function. So anyway, I had the proton beam therapy done as soon as I could, after reading up on a whole reams of information on it. And the more I read, the more I was determined that I wasn't convincing myself, but this in fact was something different, something totally different than any other type of radiation. So anyway, I had the proton beam therapy done, and over the next 22 months, my PSA went down from 11.1 to an average of about 1.3, and then remained there. Now, fast forward to now, and here it is 8 years later. My PSA was laying for about 6 years at 1.3, and in 2 weeks I'm going to be 69 years old, and I have to say, everything that Loma Linda told me and everything in their literature, technical literature about the procedure was right. I'm sitting here now at just about 69, and I'm still as functional sexually as I was 20 years ago, which is the only thing I really want to do on this whole deal. I mean it, you know. And I even so during the 2 months of treatment. So in other words, it wasn't the kind of thing where you're laying in a bed for 2 months suffering like somebody might with chemotherapy or what have you. I was out, I was still running, not quite as fast, because the food out there is not very healthy, and I wound up gaining about 5 pounds, so, you know, you kind of drag along. But anyway, everything that they said theoretically should happened to me, and everything is fine. I still run 20 miles a week. I still have a business that's a year before last did the best ever. So, you know, it hasn't affected me in any way at all. The only thing it has done, and I was shocked to hear this, I didn't know this when I went into it, and I may not have done it if I knew it, but over a period of years, your ejaculate gradually goes down to a low amount. I was very happy with that, but it, for some reason, does not affect the sexual feeling. I have no idea why. I'm not complaining. But that is the only thing that I can say was a problem. And I don't know, maybe as you get older that happens anyway. I didn't get a chance to find out. I don't know. But anyway, now I'm still running. I have a good business. I go on a lot of great vacations. I enjoy my family. And life is good. So, I mean, what more would you want, really? And more recently, my PSA in the last 6 months has changed from the 1.3. For some odd reason, it's dropped to about 0.85. I don't know why. Actually, I would like to have it stay at the 1.3. I don't want to disturb anything. Everything is just fine. So, but anyway, it's down to 0.85, and they did not know why that would happen. They said that's kind of unusual, but that's where it is now. Now, at that time, 8.5 years ago, Loma Linda University Medical Center was the only place, pretty much, that had this treatment. And since then, in the last couple of years, there's been a flock of other ones that are all opening up around the country. The reason why it takes so long is that it costs about $100 million for each facility. So, you know, it's not like wheeling up an IMRT machine that might cost you an affordable amount for a doctor. It's just something that, and it takes years to develop the whole machine, get it operational. So, in short, I would recommend that everyone that needs some kind of treatment contact Dr. Rossi at Loma Linda. A very easy phone number, 1-800-PROTONS. Can't beat that. And talk to him, nothing to lose, and see if you might be a candidate. Not everybody is. See if you might be a candidate for proton beam therapy. And I just have nothing but great things to say about it. Put my brother-in-law into it, and everybody else I could come across that was interested. Most, by the way, are not. They just seem, this doesn't click. So I would call Dr. Rossi and schedule an appointment, and nothing to lose. Anyway, I have here, I have, you know, being a ex-technical guy a long time ago, I've got really close, very, very accurate information on my PSA over the years. I've got more than like 50 different readings, and I'll be happy to show them all to you outside later, you know, if it helps. And you can see the whole numbers going down and remaining flat for 6 years, and that's about all. So anyway, if you have any questions, you can call me. My cell phone, 310-849-1266. Give me a call anytime, and I wish everybody the best of luck. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, I think it's really great that we have guys come up that are willing to share and counsel and impart the information and experiences that they've garnered. One thing in this prostate cancer world we all know is that what works for one fellow may not work for the next. So it's incumbent upon us to analyze, to talk, to determine, you know, what may work best for us individually, and that we all have to be willing to live with side effects. Now, our next speaker, my very good friend Walt, also had protons, and I'll let you listen to his result. You want to pass that mic over?
Good evening. I too know Carl Rossi very well. He was born in El Medina, California, and a little bit of my history was I had a physical about 12 years ago, and my PSA rose more than what it should have. So my GP immediately said, you should go in and see a urologist. This is a good urologist to go and see. And so went in there and he says, well, what we ought to do is we ought to take some biopsies and see what's going on. And he came up with a Gleason score of 2+2, which is 4, which is not very bad, but at least when back then they only took 6 scores. But it was bad enough that he immediately had time to operate on me.
What year was this, Walt?
This was about 12 years ago. So I'm a little bit prior to his situation, probably about a 4-year differential situation. But this urologist immediately wanted to operate right on me. And due to my wife, who was out in the audience, she had heard about the prostate form of Fullerton, and she got a hold of a fellow by the name of Bill Dane, who has since deceased. And my good friend Murray Corwin isn't here tonight, but he also had prostate cancer and was up in Loma Linda. He was a Loma Linda graduate also. And Bill Dane did tell me one thing. He said, do your complete studies and use the Ben Franklin balance sheet in making up your mind what you're going to do. And that is getting all your pros and cons, figure out all the possible things you can do, and then balance them out as to weighting them as far as the interests that there are in your life, because we all have different interests and different importance. I too felt as though not having the side effect of libido was one of my major situations also. But at any rate, I had decided on seeds. I went up to Seattle to the original doctors who formed the seed situation, had a long talk with them. They sold me on the idea of seeds, but my insurance carrier, I'm an insurance broker, the plan that I had at that time said, we're not going to get seeds, but I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to give you, if you'd like, and I'd also mentioned that I'd like a proton beam, we'll give you proton beam. Which I said, hey, that's just good. Right down the street, I could be there in 45 minutes, and that sounds like a great idea. So I went up and seen Carl Rossi up at Loma Linda and set up. Matter of fact, I had an appointment set up for the seeds, only time to go up there, so I had to cancel that. So at any rate, I was looking for some of the same things this gentleman was looking for, was the least amount of inconvenience. And believe me, it is the least amount of inconvenience. They form a cast for you, which you go into, and they try to direct the proton beam or the bright point to be in the right place, etc. And basically, after 2 years out, I was in talking to Carl Rossi, maybe 6 months before that, and he said I was a clinical failure. It was over my head. So I went home and went back to see him in another 3 months, and he again said clinical failure. I said, what the hell is clinical failure? He says, basically, if you don't go below 1.0, you are considered a clinical failure within the Loma Linda criteria at that time. And which I didn't go below that. I never have it below 1.0.
You're talking about your PSA.
My PSA, yeah, 1.0. So I've also had the good fortune to go up to Dr. Kranovich up in University of California, San Francisco. They have a wonderful machine up there which they gave me free auspices to, and people can still yet go up there, and they have a free study which does a radio wave type situation with called a 3-TRES scan, a CT scan, and there's no radiation or anything else or X-ray in it. It's a very good situation, and they can tell basically how your growth of your cancer is coming.
Let me interject here. For those of you who might be interested in that, I think they still have a free clinical study available for certain prostate cancer patients. It's the University of San Francisco. It's the endorectal MRI with spectrometry. And any of us on the board can hook you up if anybody's interested in that. Let us know, and we'll give you Chris Soto's phone number, who's the contact man up there. I've had it done twice. It's an excellent investigative imaging tool to go along with some of the other stuff that is available. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, at present, my doctor is Dr. Schultz in Marina Del Rey. He's my oncologist, and basically he is also with Dr. Lamb and the other doctor that's up in Dr. Bond. They're kind of together now, and they're doing the color Doppler, which I recommend very highly to spot any problems you might have. The side effects with the proton beam are very, very minor, and your libido will catch up with you. I guarantee you I'm 73. So,
I'm only 69.
I guarantee you it does catch up with you. Anytime you take any radiation, etc., generally it doesn't get you in the front end, but sooner or later, either a combination of age and radiation will catch up with you. My present PSA is 2.8, which is not alarming, etc., and that's under the simple treatment of Prostate. The biggest problem today, I'm an insurance broker, but is having the right type of insurance to take care of this is the biggest one thing, the biggest handicap people have. The HMOs just won't refer you up there, basically because when I was referred up there and HealthNet paid for the plan, which was amazing, it was $30,000, and now it's over $100,000 to get the same procedure done. So it's most insurance carriers don't want to spend that type of money when for $10,000, $12,000 they can have you operated on, and hopefully get the same situation. So to sum up, about 5 years ago, I approached the Prostate Pharma Authority and said, why don't we start a group which has reoccurrence, because after the study was made, we found out that about 35% of people get reoccurrence whether they want it or not. And that's just the way the ball bounces. No matter if we had a prostatectomy or radiation or seeds or anything else, it seems like about 35% of people get it. And so now you got a double whammy. You went through the stress of the first time, and now you're going through the stress of the second time. So I found the meeting to be very, very profitable, and I ran it for about 3.5 years, and I turned it over to Bob Moore, who wasn't here today, and I got the pleasure of running a little bit of it today. And I was very pleasurable to see that there were 6-8 people in there at this forum. So, at any rate, to finish up some of the negative situations, one of my friends was up there. They're doing a protocol on adding some extra rads, which is more radiation, to the protocol. And I hate to tell you now, my friend's not dead. They gave him too much radiation, ended up burning his bladder. Your bladder sits up there. In the situation, they were able to cauterize the upper parts of his bladder, but the lower part of your bladder is impossible to cauterize to stop the bleeding. And so too much radiation will give you some real headaches, believe me. So that's the sad ending of the situation on that. So that's about it, Larry.
Okay, thank you, Wolf. Being in this forum, we speak to gentlemen that come in all the time with different results, and some are very pleased, some are not, some have side effects, some do not. And as many of our speakers say time after time, if a really good predictive tool were ever made that could tell them which patients are going to go on and have advanced disease and which aren't, it would make things a lot easier in this prostate cancer world. But those are coming, genetic and biological markers. They're not quite here yet. So in the interim, we all do the best we can with the state of medicine as it is. Our next speaker will be Ron, who has had, it's robotic surgery, right, Ron?
Yes.
Yeah, he had robotic, and he'll be happy to share his information.
Okay, my name is Ron, and first of all, I need to tell you my wife's out there to make sure I don't tell any lies. And in serious, 1999, I found out that both my brothers and my father had prostate cancer. So, and my younger brother was 47 at the time, so that told me I should start watching the PSA test. So therefore, from 1999, every 6 months we did the PSA test. And the PSA tests were not bad, 2.43. It didn't seem to indicate anything, so we thought we were doing real good. And my wife said at another meeting that told a friend that's a retired doctor that PSA test was doing real good, 2.43. He said, well, did you take a free-bound PSA test? We didn't know what that was. So then he said, a lot of doctors don't want to do this. So we went to a HMO place that we go to, and we asked for not only a PSA, but a free-bound PSA, and he kind of balked on it, but he finally did it. And that's what caught my prostate problem. And it was at 23%, and 25 is normal, so that said that something was not right. So then we had some other tests, and the HML, they found some cancer. So then and what they said was that my wife and I should go home, think about it. We have two options: radical surgery or radiation, and come back in 2 weeks, let them know. Well, we didn't like that approach. My wife got on the internet and did some serious checking up, and we come across this robotic-assisted laparoscopic surgery. That sounded pretty good. And so then we also found out of Dr. Baum, so we went to see Dr. Baum, and he, through his part Doppler, showed that the cancer was contained, which is good. So then we went back to the HMO and talked to this doctor that wanted to cut me open, and we didn't like that. So we didn't like the whole setup, so we decided, let's change medical plans, and we went with Blue Cross. My doctor out there, nurse. And so then we changed over and we went to City of Hope. We made an appointment with Dr. Kawachi, and after physical and all that, and I brought the data from Dr. Bond showing the cancer. And Dr. Kawachi said I was a good candidate for this robotic. So February 9th, I had the robotic assisted laparoscopic surgery, and they said I could go home after the first night, but my wife wanted me there 2 nights so she wouldn't get woozy and some of the things that had to be done. So I stayed there 2 nights, but it was no problem. I also, after 2 weeks, was able to walk and golf after the surgery. So then we went back and City of Hope, and every 6 months we were doing the PSA test and the pre-bound test and all that stuff. And it was down, the PSA was down to minus 0.01, and it pretty well stayed at that level. It hasn't changed in 4 years.
What was your Gleason diagnosis?
The Gleason was 3+3, combination score of 6. So everything seems great. They were able to save the 2 nerves, and my quality of life is the same before and after the operation. I just have to take my wife out to dinner sometimes and kiss and hug her once in a while. Everything's fine. So that's my story.
Well, very good. Thank you very much. Here now from Webb, one of our board members who has had an experience with radioactive seed implantation. And let me turn it over to Webb.
I didn't know I was going to be doing this, so I'm going to try and wing it and remember things off the top of my head. At 59, I got a physical, and I asked my doctor to throw in the PSA test, and it came back positive, and I had the biopsy, and of course he told me that he had an appointment in 2 weeks that he could do a radical prostatectomy. And a friend of mine got online and found the prostate forum, and the first speaker that I heard was Dr. Doggett on seeds, and I really kind of liked the idea of that. And I went back and talked to my doctor, my HMO, and at the time that HMO would have done anything I wanted as long as it was surgery. My PSA was 4.7, and my Gleason was 3+3. So fortunately, that was in May, and fortunately in October my employer has open enrollment, and I can change medical plans. And so that's what I ended up doing. I changed to a PPO, which gave me the option to do whatever I wanted. And I decided I like the idea of seeds, and one of the many things that people told me is that if you're going to have somebody do something, have somebody that has done a lot of them. And Dr. Ragney in Seattle at the time was known as the father of seed implants, and he'd done several thousand. So I went up and talked to him, and he's an old, tough Swede, and he did a Doppler test, I believe, and called my wife and I in, and he said, well, you're not a candidate for seeds, you're not a candidate for surgery. And I just about fell off the chair, you know? And he said, but if you do exactly what I tell you, and I don't care whether you do it or not, because I've got all the patients I can handle. And he said, you need to do 25 treatments of external beam radiation, you need to do seeds, and you need to do hormone therapy. And that was pretty much it. And then he turned me over to, my wife and I, over to his younger assistant, who talked to us and filled us in on everything, answered all our questions. And I decided that's what I wanted to do. And like I told some people, that it was such a relief just to decide what I wanted to do. I kind of felt like this is the man that I want to do it. And so it's kind of like a leap of faith for me. We had to wait till after the first of the year to change insurances. Went up there in March of 1999. And I was the first. Oh, and by the way, after I changed insurances, I got a new urologist, and I had gone to see him before my insurance changed, just on my own, and he told me, yeah, go up to Dr. Raggy. He said, if you're gonna have this done, go to the best, and he's the best. Well, in January when I went back to see him, he said, you know, my partner and I have started doing seeds, and we're really happy with their outcome. And I asked him, how many have you done? And he said, 3 already. And I told him, I'm going up there. And he said, I understand. I was the first patient the day that I did it. I was the first of 8 that day. So my doctor had and has done a lot of them since then. It was a 45-minute outpatient procedure. Took me maybe 3 or 4 hours for the anesthesia to wear off. My wife and I walked out of there back to our motel. Went and saw him the next day, and I flew home. I had it done on a Tuesday, flew home on a Wednesday, went on a 2-hour hike on a Friday. The only side effect, if you will, or not even a side effect, I ended up having like a spot of blood in my shorts about the size of a dime. That was the only outcome of my radioactive seeds. And for those of you that don't know, what they do is they go in between your scrotum and your rectum with these long needles, and they insert seeds into your prostate. And I had 72 seeds inserted. My PSA very rapid. Well, also my urologist then now had said, well, you know, I've heard that 3 months of hormone treatment is better than, or 8 months is better than 3 months. So I opted to do that. So I did do 8 months of hormone therapy. I did 25 treatments of external beam prior to going to Seattle. And basically, I did that on the suggestion of Dr. Raggy, who I felt very confident with. You know, people ask me, would you do the same thing over again today? And I don't know that I would, you know, but I know a lot more. And of course, today, almost 10 years later, there are a lot better tests to give you a better idea of what your prostate cancer is like. My PSA has been less than 1. I get it tested every 6 months. The test and I've since gone back to an HMO. My doctor tells me that it's virtually undetectable, and it has been. I agree with Walt on one thing, and that is that initially I did need Viagra, but it worked quite well. It is not working near as well now. It's just slowly lost its ability, or my ability, I guess. And so I do think that where you come out is not necessarily where you're going to end up. Today, like I say, I need Viagra. It doesn't work as well. The other side effect is incontinence. I would say that I don't have incontinence, although I suppose that's a relative term. You know, there are times, especially when I pull up in the parking lot of Home Depot, and I think, well, you know, after I go to the nuts and bolts section, maybe I'll go to the restroom. Well, as soon as I start thinking about it, I better forget about the nuts and bolts, and I better be getting in there. So that's different. That didn't used to be that way. As Walt said, I'm now 69 also, and my libido isn't what it was, prior to the treatment, and I don't, is that my treatment? Is it my age? Is it my cholesterol medication? Because you read your medications, all of them have side effects. Almost all of them can affect your libido, and so I don't know. I think I tell people I only have 2 questions about what I did at this point, and that's, did I do too much? That's the first question. The second question is, did I do enough? And I hope I never get the answer to the second question. Thank you.
Our next speaker availed himself of a new form of treatment that's in the surgery mode or ablation mode, maybe closer to a cryosurgery, although this surgery technique uses high-intensity focused ultrasound to ablate the cancer, to kill the cells and destroy tumor. It's a technique that's being used in Europe quite extensively. It also now is being used out of our country. The FDA and the government here has not okayed it for general use yet, although it's in clinical trials. And it is available in clinical trial settings now in country, but our friend Jordan, who availed himself of it, went to Mexico under the care of, I believe it's a U.S. doctor, he'll straighten this out, who is only able to do it out of country. I know some is being done in Canada now. The jury is out in terms of long-term studies on this technique, and that's probably one reason why our friendly government has not okayed it yet for U.S. Let's hear from Jordan and his experiences with HIFU or high-intensity focused ultrasound. Jordan?
Good evening. I was diagnosed in October of 1999, and my PSA at the time was 4.2, and it turned out my Gleason score was 6+7. So the urologist suggested surgery, and I was so frightened by the word prostate cancer. I decided I would go along with it immediately, and I signed up for a date 3 weeks after that initial meeting. My wife heard about this forum down here, and so I decided to come down here and find out some information, and I immediately decided to cancel the surgery and go on hormone blockade. So I went to another doctor who does this work, and I took 13 months of treatment with the triple hormone blockade, which would be the Lupron shots and the 3 Casodex plus the Prostate. The side effects, I was tired all the time, and also it gave me anemia. And because the doctor forgot to tell me to take calcium, vitamin D3, and Fosamax, I developed osteoporosis. However, I was in remission for 44 months, which is considered a pretty good length of time. But after the 44 months, my PSA started rising, and when it got to about 4.1, I decided I wanted to do something positive to get rid of this, what I thought was like a curse. And I decided to do cryosurgery, and I went to a doctor that specializes in cryosurgery, and he saw my records from Dr. Bond, and he said, that won't be possible to do because of the shape of my prostate gland as a result of the TERP I had many years ago. So he suggested a new treatment called HIFU, high intensity focused ultrasound. The way it works is, you all know what a magnifying glass will do in the sun focus it on a piece of paper, it'll burn a hole right through the paper. And this is what it does. It fries the cancer cells and makes scar tissue throughout the entire prostate gland. It's not legal in the United States yet, but it's legal in Europe, in Canada, Mexico, Philippines, Japan. In any event, I decided I would go along and give it a try. So I went to Mexico with 3 other men and the doctor, and we went to a Puerto Vallarta and a small American hospital down there. And we all had the HIFU done over a two-day weekend. After the surgery, it was about half an hour long, I'd say. I walked out of the hospital to a restaurant in the rain. And so 6 months after my HIFU, they took 10 biopsies, and they all proved to be negative, and everything seemed to be fine. However, 6 months later, which would be like 1 year after the HIFU, they found one spot of cancer in the prostate gland and also one spot on the right seminal vesicle. So now it was out of the capsule. In addition to this problem, my flow is very, very poor, and as a result of scar tissue that formed at the neck of the bladder, opening to the urethra. And it took 2 operations to relieve this problem. So then, my only other option now was to go back on hormone blockade, which I did for another 13 months, and I finished May the 1st, a couple of weeks ago. I got my last Lupron shot, and my present PSA is 0.03. And I'm hoping for at least the 44 months I had plus this time. That's my story.
Well, the silver lining to Jordan's story is that even though his cancer had escaped the capsule, and of course no one would know whether it was already out when he did his HIFU, correct, Jordan? I mean, we'll never know whether your cancer had escaped the capsule prior to HIFU or not.
Prior to HIFU?
Yeah. No.
They didn't know it was out.
They didn't know it was out, but there is no test that will accurately ever measure that with certainty. At any rate, the silver lining to your story is that you're still able to treat and you're still able to manage your disease, and you're looking forward to another 44-month span of holiday now off of triple blockade, and hopefully the cancer will be managed, and we all hope and pray as survivors that medical science will come up with yet another approach that's not being used now but may work well in the future, and that's what keeps us going.
That's what I'm hoping for, to come up with a vaccine in the next year or 2 or 3, and we'll all be cured.
Amen. Since we're in church. Let's hear from another one of our directors, the unflappable Ron Boss, who also leads our newly diagnosed class, who's a wealth of information, a spark plug around here, a guy that always has a smile and something positive to say, and a pleasure to work with. So Ron, take it away.
Thanks, Larry. My name is Ron Boss, and I have prostate cancer. I'm a 5-year survivor. Tonight marks exactly 5 years since I took my first Lupron shot, May the 22nd, 2003. I did something that was very heretical for a treatment. People told me I was nuts, that I was using the last bullet in my gun first. I decided to do hormonal treatment as a primary therapy. I eschewed surgery. I didn't like the side effects or the potential side effects. I didn't like all the side effects and the collateral damage from all the radiations that I read about. It seemed that everything I read and everybody I talked to and all the doctors that I heard speak and all the books that my wife and I read and all the videos that my wife and I watched said that if you had surgery and you relapsed, you ended up doing hormonal therapy. If you had radiation and you relapsed, you ended up doing hormonal therapy. If you had cryosurgery and you relapsed, you ended up doing hormonal therapy. And I said, why don't we do hormonal therapy first? And there is one very big caveat with hormonal therapy, and that is that the prostate cancer cells are very smart little buggers. And if you start bombarding them with these hormones and knocking them off, they have the ability to mutate and become independent of the androgen, testosterone, which you are knocking away with your hormonal therapy. The hormonal therapy that I did was an anti-androgen Casodex, that shuts off your testosterone, luteinizing hormone, releasing hormone agonist, Lupron, which shuts down the pituitary gland's ability to tell the testicles to produce testosterone, and a 5-alpha reductase inhibitor, 5-alpha reductase being an enzyme that's produced by the prostate, which allows testosterone to become dihydrotestosterone, to be converted to dihydrotestosterone, which beats cancer 5 times faster. So what you are doing technically is a chemical or medical castration. Rather than having an orchiectomy and having your testicles removed, you are shutting down the ability of the testicles and the pituitary gland to provide any testosterone to feed your cancer. So that's what I did. There were two protocols. One was by a doctor in Century City, which indicated that you would do the triple hormone blockade for 13 months and then stop. He did not retreat you with hormonal therapy after that. The other protocol was Dr. Strum's protocol, which is you drive your testosterone level and your PSA down to a level of 0.05 or less for 12 consecutive months, and then you go on maintenance and intermittent therapy. It sounded very good to me. The first time I went on the hormonal treatment, I stayed on it for 17 months. It took me that long to get my PSA down from 12.14 to 0.05 or less for 12 consecutive months, and I nadered at 0.018, 3 decimal places. I went off the therapy and on Avodark maintenance after that for about 9 months. My PSA started rising again. My testosterone levels started going back up again because I still had a prostate and I was producing testosterone, and my PSA level rose at a rate that I didn't like, and I went up to see Dr. Vaughn in Ventura, and sure enough, I still had some cancer. So I went back on the therapy after a 9-month vacation the first time. This time I stayed on it for 19 months. My PSA went down to a nadir of 0.014, after which I went up to see Dr. Vaughn again, went in for his color Doppler ultrasound and a biopsy, did the color Doppler ultrasound, and he said, there's nothing to biopsy. My initial numbers were 12.14 PSA, Gleason 7, 3 plus 4. I had, my initial biopsy was 9 out of 10 cores positive, 1 to 90%, several in the 60% range, a couple in the 35% range. I had peritoneal invasion in 2 of my samples, in 2 of my cores. Nerve sparing was not really going to be an option for surgery, even though the urologist said, you have to do surgery, and you have 5 weeks to make up your mind, and I have an opening, and my wife and I just went time out while I could figure out what to do. The day after my initial diagnosis, we came to the forum and went to the newly diagnosed group, and a gentleman named Dexter Strother told me that this was not death sentence. There were many, many options, and that I had plenty of time to make up my mind on what I wanted to do. My wife and I was originally got a high PSA in January of 2003. I started my treatment in May of 2003. I'm now a 5-year survivor. I will never say that I am cured. What I tell people is that I have no detectable cancer at the present time. I still have a prostate. My PSA is rising slowly, as it is intended to be doing, because I still have a prostate. My testosterone is rising slowly, coming back to more normal levels. My doctor has told me that I am one lucky guy because my body was able to tolerate all of the side effects of hormonal treatment, of which there are many, and I'll go over a couple of those real quickly. Right now, I'm seeing my doctor every 3 months. As I say, my PSA is now 0.298 and rising slowly. I have nothing to biopsy. I have no detectable prostate cancer. Side effects from the hormonal therapy can be devastating to some people, or they can be minimal, or you can have a combination. I was very, very fortunate in that they weren't devastating to me or my wife. We talked this over very, very carefully and for a long time before we decided on what we were going to do. Right off the bat, you lose your libido. You don't care about sex. You become impotent. There are emotional changes or mental changes. I did not experience those, although those happen in 17% of men. I had no bone or joint pain. That happens 30% of the time, but you can take things for that. Gynecomastia, or breast tenderness or enlargement, occurs in 38% of men. I did have some slight breast enlargement. I didn't have any tenderness. I was a swimmer all of my life, and I have large pecs anyway, so that doesn't really bother me. I don't feel like I really have breasts that are out of limits. Anemia happens to 45% of men. I did not get anemic from the hormonal therapy, and my doctor could not explain that. However, if you do get anemic, you can treat that with Procrit, which can help you there. Hot flashes or sweats, 48% of men get those, and yes, I have them. They were not devastating to me. Some people get really soaked and soak through their clothing and everything else, have to take a change of clothing if they're still working. I happen to be retired, so that worked out very well for me. But to me, they were minimal. I really got most of my heat inside my forearms and on top of my thighs. Weakness, loss of stamina, loss of muscle mass, 56% of men get that. You have to exercise, guys, if you're going to do hormonal treatment. You have really got to exercise. I did not have a lot of weakness or a lot of muscle mass. My workouts took me a little longer. I noticed I was going a little slower in my swimming workout and things like that, but I did not lose a lot of stamina. Hypercholesterolemia can get very, very high cholesterol with this treatment. 56% of men get that. I did not. Diet and exercise can control that. Osteoporosis or bone loss, like Jordan said, I did not get that because my doctor did tell me to take calcium citrate and vitamin D3 and Fosamax, which I take 70 milligrams once a week. I'm still on it. I'm not sure how long I'm going to stay on it because I see things in the news now that say that might not be too good for you to stay on it forever. Weight gain. I did not gain weight. You can get up to weight gain of up to 40 pounds if you just sit around on the couch after you do this stuff, because you tend to create more body fat. What you're doing is feminizing your body. You're taking away all of your testosterone, taking it to castrate levels, 20 nanograms per deciliter or less. That's as low as they can measure. That's why you lose the body hair. That's why you get the breast tenderness. You are, in a sense, feminizing your body, and you tend to put on more body fat than if you just had your regular male hormones. And loss of body hair. I did lose the body hair, especially on my arms and legs, but you can regain that when your testosterone comes back in the off period. And not only that, because you're African, you tend to grow a little more hair on your head, which I thought was okay, since I have my dad's bald spot, my male pattern baldness in the back. As I say, would I do this again? Absolutely. Right now, I'm on Avodart maintenance. All of these procedures and all these therapies are still available to me. I can do anything that I want right now. If I want to do surgery, if I want to do radiation of any kind, if I want to do cryo, it's all still available to me. All of the side effects of the hormonal treatment are reversing and disappearing and getting less and less as time goes on. I'm off now 17 months, had my last Lupron shot in January of 2007. So I'm doing really well. The thing that I would like to do now is to thank some people, most of all my lovely wife, who has been with us, been my rock through this whole ordeal of now 5 years tonight since we started this therapy. She's been with me the whole time. She knows an awful lot about prostate cancer and has been very helpful here at the forum. Secondly, I would like to say thank you to the Prostate Forum of Fullerton. Coming here has probably saved my life, made me realize that I had to do a lot of work to find out what prostate cancer was about before I made some kind of a mistake and did something that I would be very, very sorry for. The special people I'd like to thank are Mary Corwin, who's not here tonight, who's a surviving of the 2 members who set up this prostate forum over 16 years ago, and Lou Pfeffer, who had a great deal to do with his own group up in Hacienda Heights that my wife and I went to also, and now a director here, and also Dexter Strother, who used to do the newly diagnosed here a long time ago, and now I've kind of slid into his shoes, and I hope I'm doing as good a job as he did. That's all I have to say on that, and I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. This is a wonderful organization.
Thank you, Ron. Before we do questions and answers, I'll give a little perspective to be a counterbalance to my good friend Ron. I was diagnosed, as I mentioned earlier, in 2003, in April of 2003, and I was with an HMO that I won't name, but it starts with a K and ends with an R. And as Webb says, they would let me do anything I wanted as long as it was surgery or radiation. And I did meet with the head guy in urology in Orange County, and he looked me right in the eye and said, "You have a significant cancer, but I can cure you." And he set me up for surgery within about 30 days, and I said, "Fine. This is what I have to do. It's what I have to do." I was going to tough it out. I started taking Kegel classes and wondering what it was going to be like to be gilded. And I was going to do it because I was a tough guy, and this is what I had to do. I had cancer, and let's get rid of it. So then I already said what Pastor Fred did for me. He sent me over here. I met Lou and Murray and all these guys, and I started getting a little bit smarter, hopefully, and I put off the surgery. I said, "Well, what else do you guys have over here?" And they sent me around, and to their credit, I talked to one of the few guys that does robotics at that place, at HMO. It starts with a K and ends with an R. And they were going to let me do robotic surgery if I wanted, because I learned about robotic surgery here. And then they also encouraged me to go talk to radiation oncology department, which I did. And I got bounced around, and they sent me up to a guy up in LA, because that's, at the time, I don't know if it's changed now, but all the radiation stuff went up in LA. Was only available in LA. So I went to a really good guy that I was going to do seeds with. Because I decided that seeds would probably be a little bit better alternative for me than surgery. So it was seeds with an external boost. And I started learning around here, and I went back to this particular doctor, and I said, "Well, wait a minute now, on these seeds, is it palladium or iodine? Oh, what can you offer me?" "Well, iodine, that's all we have." And I said, "Well, I'm learning that maybe palladium seeds are a little bit better, and here's the reasons, and here's the studies." "Oh, but we don't do palladium, we only do iodine." Well, it was cost effective for them. And I said, "Well, on this external boost, do you have IMRT available?" He said, "Oh, we have one of those units here, but it's only for the real cancer patients. The prostate guys have to go to 3D conformal, which was second generation behind IMRT, which has now been replaced by Tomo and other modalities that are even better, but that's another story." So I said, okay, well, we made our date for seed implantation. I was going to do seeds first and then external. And I was happy, and I was plugged in here, but I wasn't on the board yet. And there was a guy coming to speak here named Dr. Bob Leibowitz, and he was going to talk about hormonal ablation, and I thought, well, I don't need to talk to him. I'm already doing seeds, so or see him, and I wasn't going to come that night. I get a call from my buddy Roger, about 10 years older than I, and he said, man, I just got diagnosed with prostate cancer. What do I do? I said, well, I better take you to the forum because you need to plug in. And we're having a meeting tonight with some guys talking about hormonal ablation, but you probably want surgery or radiation. Come on down. So I brought him here. I sat right over there where Bob Leibowitz did a very eloquent presentation on the possible use of ADT3 or hormonal ablation using Lupron, Casodex, and Proscar, as some of the guys have mentioned. About 9 o'clock when we got done with that presentation, I called the Kaiser emergency number on my, I wasn't going to say that name, on my cell phone, and I said, I'm really sick, I can't make the operation tomorrow, you're going to have to cancel me out. And they did, and the doctor was really mad at me for, taking, but I just couldn't go through with seeds after what I was learning at that point in my evolution. So that brings me to then finding a fellow. I searched around within the Kaiser system, and I found a guy who was a friend of my niece, a urologist out in Harbor City, and he had written a book on alternative healing, and he was a proponent of trying different things, even as a urologist and a surgeon. And I talked him into 3D. I talked him into hormonal ablation by getting studies that I got through the forum, and I put them on his desk. And I said, I consider this to be state of the art, even for early stage, intermediate risk prostate cancer. I want to try it as my first approach. And he ran it up the flagpole, came back to me a couple of days later and said, okay, they approved it. You can have, because they would do Lupron or Casodex, but not both, and certainly Proscar was unheard of. That was for growing hair on people that didn't have hair. But I gave him the protocol, and I said this is what I wanted to do, and I was one of the first people that got triple blockade through Kaiser. So that was in June of '03. I stayed on a year. I went down to undetectable right away. I battled through the side effects at the time and stayed on Proscar maintenance up until just about 2 months ago. I took myself off because I decided that the ongoing side effects were a little bit tough and I wanted to have a holiday. PSA is rising at, up to about 4.7 now, 4.7. I had a biopsy after treatment that revealed nothing detectable as cancer, but as we all know with hormonal blockade, it's not permanent, and one at some point has to consider retreating, although there are some lucky souls out there that can do hormonal blockade as an initial and only treatment and can stay out years and years and years. I know one fellow I'm looking at right here, I know he got 7 or 8 years. 7 or 8? Yeah.
8 years.
8 years on one treatment of hormonal blockade. So now I'm looking at retreatment, and what I wanted to impart this evening is I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to take a look at everything again. The side effects for me were much more pronounced than with my friend Ron. Libido loss I could live with. But there was a focus issue, a sleep pattern issue, a general tiredness and malaise issue. And testosterone doesn't just drive the sex drive. I think for me it drives everything else. So maybe it was my age when I started, and I stayed on Proscar all these years as well, or Avodart or Proscar. I'd go back and forth. But it got recently where I just decided that I needed a holiday, and my sex drive's coming back, that I'm off of everything, but the cancer's coming back, so no, I have to look at it again. And I just want to impart that it's, as I mentioned earlier, there's no easy way out with any of these treatments. You got to pay the piper. So I'll take another look at it, and I'm one of the unlucky guys that has a side effect of Proscar interfering with libido. My doctor's telling me that I'm 1 in 20 in that regard. It worked well for me. It knocked the cancer down. It's coming back. So I wanted everybody to get that idea with triple blockade. That some guys like Ron will sail through it, some guys like me are going to have more side effects than others. There's evidence now that the triple blockade in combination with radiation, say, offer better results than radiation standing alone. So I do believe there's a good use for the triple blockade approach. And again, it's for every man to decide for himself after careful evaluation. So let's open it up to any questions. Is John here? He's going to be my mic guy? No, I don't see him. Okay.
Right here.
Yeah, let's have... No, John, would you run the mic on if there are any questions?
Just have to pass it around.
Oh,
Yeah.
Then we can all hear the question.
Raise your hand if you have a question.
Any questions? I know we had one over here earlier. Yeah.
Okay.
One of you mentioned that you stopped taking a multivitamin with iron in it. I wanted to know why the iron, what the effect the iron was.
Oh, that was my expression. You want to take over the?
You got a mic right there.
Oh.
Right? You want to just...
Oh, all right, I'll just choose it.
The iron in vitamin pills are for women who are menstruating, and older men do not need iron unless they have a very special condition. So it just rushes your body. So, and if you buy a vitamin like Centrum Senior, it won't have iron in it. So you just have to look carefully at the vitamin bottles and make sure that it doesn't have iron. Unless your doctor prescribes that you need iron, you should try to avoid it.
Anyone else?
Behind you, John.
Ron, you mentioned that with the hormone replacement therapy that you're going through, that you did specific vitamins, or you took specific vitamins so that you wouldn't get osteoporosis, or like...
I didn't take any vitamins. I took Fosamax, which is a bisphosphonate. That's to help with bone resorption, and it's 70 milligrams once a week. And I take it at 4 a.m. every Saturday morning when I get up to go for a walk at the beach at 4:30. And my wife and I get up every Saturday morning early. And you take one 70 milligram tablet every week. That's Fosamax. That was for to prevent osteoporosis. And also I take calcium citrate, vitamin D, and also, that's it. Calcium citrate, vitamin D, and Fosamax.
Okay, thank you.
Now, there are a number of things that are recommended by some of the experts. Vitamin E, with the what Ron were the triple. You're the techno guy. That vitamin E with all three. The alpha.
I do take a little selenium and a little lycopene and a very small dose of vitamin E in a capsule form. Comes in a thing called Lycomato Trio, and that's I do take that every day. It's kind of a little bit of a supplement. Selenium being a trace element that's found in root vegetables, and lycopene is found in tomatoes in particular.
How about pomegranate juice?
Oh, I drink pomegranate juice. I get my pomegranate juice at Costco in a concentrate form, and it's 1 ounce of concentrated pomegranate juice in a glass of water. 8-ounce glass of water is equal to 15 pomegranates, and it only has 4 grams of sugar per serving, as opposed to the stuff that you might get at Trader Joe's and stuff, which is the actual pomegranate juice, which runs like 30 or 40 grams of sugar per serving. That's a lot more sugar. So I do watch my sugar intake, and I watch my diet very much. My wife and I eat a lot of things that are very, very high in vitamin K, which is green leafy vegetables like lettuce and salads and stuff, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale being number 1 on the list for vitamin K. You gotta watch that a little bit because you can get blood clots if you overdose on broccoli. You can get deep vein thrombosis in your legs if you eat too much. So you have to really watch that. Too much vitamin K isn't good. That's what helps clot your blood. So, but we do eat a lot of salads and very little red meat. We do watch our diet very much. We did a modified Sugar Busters and combined with South Beach diet kind of together thing. Worked out very, very nicely for us. Everything we like to eat is in both of them, so that's good.
As some of the guys up here, I do a lot of juicing with the green cruciferous vegetables, different things like spinach and broccoli and kale, and I mix it with cucumber and celery, carrot and apple sometimes, and I'll try to take that every day. The pomegranate juice is great. I am also a proponent of some of the other things, like some of the mushrooms I think could be helpful, and so on. So if anybody has any questions about that, I'd be happy to impart those things. There are some supplements that people like Snuffy Myers and Dr. Moyad do agree that are very helpful. A couple of the books that are interesting now is the China Study by Colin Campbell. He'll be one of our speakers next year. And he took a group of scientists around China and determined scientifically that the cultures that eat less of the Western diet with more plant protein than animal protein have a much lower risk of all cancers and all Western diseases than the richer provinces that ate more like the Western diet. So there's some relationship there that's been proved now scientifically. Another good book that I'd like to put out there is the Barry Sears series, culminating with the Anti-Inflammation Zone, which is a very nice workup on the role of carbohydrates and protein ratios in promoting good health. And I think he's got some great ideas there that most of the cancer doctors that I've talked to also agree with. Any more questions? If not, we'll go ahead and disband. And you got one in the back. Okay.
Yes, I'm Charles. Charles, would you give me that phone number again? And did you do the colored Doppler before you did the proton?
I didn't hear that last question.
Did you do any colored Doppler before you did the proton?
No, this was back in late 99, 2000, and if it was around then, I wasn't aware of it. So that was it. Looking back in 99, 2000, it was actually 99 when I made the decision. There was very little good information around. The books in the bookstore were from 1994, which meant they were probably written in 92, and it was poor information. Which phone number? The number for Low Linda?
No, the one that you gave.
Oh, for myself?
Right.
Sure. 310-849-1266. That's my cell phone. Home phone is 310-540.
That's it. I'll use my cell. Thanks.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I have a question for Walt. Being a broker, how can we get insurance for those who are trapped in the HMO insurance? Is there any other way to get out and get a PPO?
There's a couple different ways. Number one is to go to your employer first and explain the situation. The biggest problem with health insurance today is just getting so damn expensive. I don't know where it's going to go. In 1963, I was able to sell insurance for $35 a month to a whole family. Today, you're looking at $600, $700, $800 a month for a family. So it's gotten way out of proportion from anything else. But to answer your question, to approach your employer, there are several plans. There's one out there called California Choice. California Choice gives you the choice of having a PPO, HMO, or a POS plan all in one. Probably gives you 20, 25 different situations. The big thing is that there's a state law that says as long as you have two people working in a company they must issue you health insurance if they sell insurance in the state of California. So the trick to the situation is for anybody who is self-employed is to have 2 employees. We did this on for one of the people on the board of directors here, and it's been pretty satisfactory, I think. Right? We got out of Kaiser. But at any rate, this really is going crazy, health insurance, and your employer is trying to keep his costs down, and there are ways of keeping the costs down, but letting the employees raise to something that is more satisfactory to them, and you just have to sell your employer on that if you've got an employer. If you're not, if you're self-employed, no problem. Just put another employee onto the books, and you can buy the plans in the state of California, and regardless of your health.
Thank you.
Well, just to wrap it up then, if any of you out there are newly diagnosed or you know anyone that is and is looking for treatment options, you know, the best advice is, even though we don't give advice, is to look at all your options, take your time. It's not a death sentence. You have plenty of time to choose the right treatment, and avail yourself of the various forums to get information. And any of us in this group can point you in the right direction, give you more information than you'll ever probably have time to go through. And then I think the other thing that all of us on this panel have in common is that after we made our decision, we went forward with the best attitude possible. And I think that really means so much in dealing with a situation like this, a disease like this, is to approach it with a positive attitude and a winning attitude. And even if you take your lumps, just like our friend Jordan has, or Walt has, and I have to an extent, you know, you rebound, you keep on going. And I think because it's the computer age and more people are researching, I'm real confident that there'll be some breakthroughs, either on the microbiological level, the genetic level, other ways to treat that are just around the corner. So I encourage everybody to keep the attitude going strong and have hope for a brighter tomorrow. Thank you all for coming.